are listening to Keep It Weird, the podcast for all things strange, swampy, humid, batshit, creepy, alarming, and everything in between. Each week we sit down together from across the country and we talk about something weird. And after several weeks of chatting, just the old two of us, we're coming at you with a very special guest and a very special edition of one of your favorites and ours, Hometown Haunts. We're hometowning it over to Florida, that beautiful
Incredible.
southern swampland full of weirdos and stories that sound made up, but they are real because it's Florida, the Sunshine State, home to the Florida man and all of the hilarity/chaos that follows him. Join us as we talk about the spooks, the crime, the legends, and all things bizarre from those beautiful beaches of Florida. I hope you packed your sunscreen because it's about to get hot in here. My name is Lauren, and this is my beautiful co-host, Ashley.
Hi, weirdos.
And joining us today is someone most of you should know from our never-ending fangirling and plugs of their show and of this wonderful person who we love. Please welcome good friend of the show and fellow podcaster from the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast, WAYNE MCCARTY.
Wow, what an intro.
Hey,
That was
Wayne.
incredible. I'm blushing and I don't blush. Physically impossible
Oh.
for me to blush, and I'm blushing right now.
Is
So
it because you're so pale?
it is. When I was younger, I wasn't allowed to go in the sun as a child.
Which is hard in
Um,
Florida.
Yeah,
it's
that's
difficult. I was a
very
shut-in.
difficult.
Yep,
Yeah.
I was a shut-in.
Aw.
And so now I ease myself out. But yeah, I think the world of you both. And I was telling somebody this morning, when we do guest appearances, it sometimes feels like work, but with you two, it feels like we're old friends catching up. And I miss you dearly. And if I talk too much about it, I'll start crying. So
For sure.
Which we just
just happy to be here.
We discussed that we're a group of criers here.
We're
so let's
all
not get it
three
started.
criers,
Yeah.
so let's not get us tied up in our emotions. Wayne, the last
100%.
time we got to podcast with you is way back in 2019.
That's
when
right.
We talked about the Betts sphere.
That was
which
a big
is
deal.
A wild story that I had never
Yep.
heard of
Huge.
until we came on your show. And since then, a lot has come out about UFOs. UAPs. Sorry,
UAPs.
U.S.
Right.
government UAPs,
Make sure you get it right.
including
Thank you.
declassified footage and theories from pretty high-ranking officials and scientists. So, what do y'all think about the idea that the small orb and Tic Tac UFOs zipping around, one, looks a lot like the Betts sphere. Two, what if they are drones? Not
Yeah.
human drones, but like extraterrestrial drones, not piloted by anything, sent here to record and send back data.
Ooh, I don't hate that.
Do you like that idea?
I mean, I like it. I don't know if that's what I think is happening, but I want to think that that's happening because I love the idea of them just flying around us, studying in their little sphere, and looking
Yeah.
out at.
Yeah,
I think they would learn all they need to know about us pretty quickly.
pretty fast.
We're such a brutal megalomaniac society, you know.
Sure,
I think they would just move on. Now, the idea that the US government has new toys to play with, that interests me, because I think traditionally that's their modus. What's the other half of that?
operandi.
There you go. So
Mhm.
they have something new and fancy, and then they go, oh, it's aliens. And then like 20 years later, they're like, oh, well, our bad. That was us. You know what I mean? Like secretly they classify it.
Yeah.
And it's always like US Navy that stumbles upon these things. Have you noticed that? Like it conveniently
is.
crashes near like a US naval fleet. And it's like, oh, that's fun.
Every report is from the Navy. That is so true. They have all the
Isn't
good
that
stuff.
interesting? Yeah.
Yep.
I did read a report recently that there was increased sightings of the Tic Tac drones over the Ukrainian and Russian conflict zone.
Oh.
And it was fascinating because the Russians were like, these UAPs are appearing and they seem to be just targeting us. And I'm like, oh, you don't say.
Yeah.
You don't say. So yeah, I think we're
But
behind
even
it
if it
somehow.
was, even if it was like extraterrestrial and they were down here, they would obviously be near where people are about to fuck shit up. Like, I love
100%.
the theory that it's not necessarily extraterrestrial, but it's ultra dimensional.
Yes.
And so they are in another dimension, but that means they're here. They're just on the planet with us, essentially. So if,
Right.
say, we set off an atomic bomb, we might fuck some shit up on their side.
They're like, hey, could you not do that?
Yeah.
Could you
so they're
stop?
coming
Like,
in. They're like, hey,
politely.
can you please not? You just destroyed a city.
Yeah, and it's always near bodies of water.
Yeah.
They're always, which is always interesting. And I do think that there's something along the lines of, you know, there's a lot of theories about dimension hopping. Okay. And so like that can be done, you know, you go into the ocean far enough and all of a sudden you're not in the ocean anymore. I've heard a lot of different theories. Yeah. And I've also heard the theory that it's future us. It's future us who we've broken the time space, you know, field.
Yeah, but we're not allowed to communicate with ourselves because then we
Right.
would change the course of history, and you know,
Yeah, or
can't
maybe
fuck with history.
You can't. And I said that to my teacher in high school. But I do think that like maybe there's a sense of they don't know they're here either, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like maybe
totally.
like, you know, like it could be accidental, but the first sighting was Florida.
Yeah, there's definitely
Florida.
There's definitely something to the idea that because we have so many historical references to these things, that they've just always existed. It's just now everyone has a camera on them at all times.
We're
We have
finally able
radar
to
that
capture
can
this
actually
footage.
capture them. Like, it could just be that they're like a part of our world we just haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm mildly offended about? And it's that like it's just been so blasé, hasn't it? Like these things come out and there's like hard evidence and everybody's like, did you see what like Kanye did? I'm like, bro, no one cares. There's aliens.
There's aliens now.
I don't understand why not everyone is losing their minds, because Ashley and I feel like talk about it every week.
Wow.
We're so excited.
I think we're all just tired.
Yeah, we're exhausted.
I think that's also part of their plan. You know, keep us tired and distracted, and then they unveil this new stuff, and then we're just like, oh, whatever, man.
Whatever. I don't even.
What are the Kardashians
Can I get a new
doing?
iPhone? My iPhone doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Kardashians always get thrown out as a distraction. Like, I swear Kris Jenner works harder than anybody else. She's throwing the news out there.
Listen, when you have an entertaining show is an entertaining show.
I agree. God bless them.
God bless them.
Honestly, dude, yeah, that's a tangent. I would do what they do if I could, you know? I mean,
yeah, 100%. Except no one would ever want to film my life.
I mean, no, but
way too
nobody wanted to film theirs either until they did.
That's true.
True.
Then it became interesting.
Back to the aliens, I will say this. I thought it was kind of interesting when the first drone footage was released back in like, I don't know, 2016, give or take, 18, North Florida, and everyone called it crazy, and everyone was like, oh, well, it's some kind of mistake, and this pilot didn't know what he was doing, and now it's spoken about like so casually on CNN. Like another Tic Tac ship was spotted, and it's like no one just seems to be bothered by it. Like it's very interesting.
Another Tic Tac ship, and also, could your canned green beans contain something that kills you? Find out after these messages.
Yeah, stay scared.
Tuned.
Stay scared.
Yeah, stay scared, everybody.
Well, if you guys out there have not listened to our crossover episode with the Florida Men, I insist that you do, because it's definitely some of the most fun we've ever had. It's a blast. And listen, a Hometown Haunts Weird Florida episode could truly be a 6-part series. So let's get into it. We've narrowed it down today to some of the lesser known, strangest stories that this state has to offer. Wild state has to offer.
Wild.
It's exhausting living here.
Wait, can you remind me, what part of Florida are you in? Well, and remind our listeners.
We're in Central Florida, and I'm not being paid to say this. It's beautiful here, and so we're right outside of Disney, in a town called Lakeland. I'm wearing the hat, City of Lakeland.
Ooh, is that your new hat?
A new hat, yeah. And I was gifted this one, WWWD. What would Wayne do? That was a nice gift that
Obsessed
someone
with that.
sent me.
I want that.
Thank you. But the city of Lakeland hat's what I'm wearing now. But yeah, we're in Central Florida, where we don't have winter and there's a lot of alligators, but people are mostly nice.
All right. That
Yeah.
was a
I
that
will
was a great
say
sell.
when I visit Florida, it's very it reminds me a lot of the Midwest. People are very nice.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, and Florida's one of those states where you can drive 45 minutes and the culture will change completely.
Totally.
Yes.
And so it just really depends on where you land, man. You're going to have a different experience no matter where you're at. But the important thing is to find the locals, ask them what they do, and then just kind of like when in Rome, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also avoid the alligators.
We went and saw Tom Segura. He was in Lakeland recently. And
Joe and I just went to see Tom Segura as well.
Hey.
so fun, right?
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Me too. And he was saying that he's like, someone told me in Lakeland that there's an alligator that's eaten 2 people, and
Cool.
it's still down there by the lake, and they just pointed at it, and we were like, yeah, that's very normal. Like we know exactly the alligator you're talking about,
Right.
and you
I
just
see 'em
don't
every
go
day.
near it.
Yeah, just don't touch that alligator.
Don't mess
as
with
an
them.
as an animal lover, environmentalist, I'm like, I mean, you know what, man? Like it's a given. You're not supposed to play with them, and why
No.
hurt? Yeah,
Don't
why
get
hurt them
into
for being
his
natural?
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm
He's
that
just
way with
living.
sharks. Whenever there's a shark attack, I'm like, well, was the shark on the beach?
Yeah.
No.
Was the
Was he in
shark
the
in your
sand?
house?
No.
You were in
Did the
their
shark
house.
break in? No.
Right.
Mhm. You were
You
in
broke
his
in.
zone.
God
That's
bless the
right.
sharks.
That's right.
You were
Yes.
trespassing. Okay, so my first story today. This story reminded me of a certain recently released horror movie that you may or may not have seen. I don't want to give any spoilers away for anyone, but if you guys have seen it, you can scream. But between 1955 and 1966, there were several reports of people encountering a strange pink cloud that hung low to the ground, almost like a rolling fog
Yeah.
along the Tomoka River west of Daytona, Florida.
Okay.
In
I
the
see.
same area, for years prior, local kids had told stories about a strange globe of light that would chase cars in that area as well. But there hasn't been any connection to those two phenomena. I just thought it was interesting to add that that also took place in that area.
Mm.
Mhm.
The pink cloud was usually seen in the cooler months by hunters and fishermen on the Tomoka River, which, kind of helped them with their explanation of the cloud. Like, okay, maybe it's fog due to the temperature and pressure changes, and maybe it's just pink because of where the sun is in the sky. Yeah. Come on,
Sure,
guys.
it's
we
fine.
can do this. But some people still expressed concern because they thought it could possibly be some sort of chemical pollution, but it was a rural area with no industrial activity. So where could the pollution have come from? Eventually, sightings of the strange low pink cloud developed into a local legend that the cloud ate people.
Yes.
Sure.
Please. I'm available.
Naturally.
I'm available.
It was blamed for the disappearance of at least 12 people.
Yeah.
Although
Dang.
there's no evidence the cloud is what took them, but it was, again, an extremely rural area, very low population, so multiple people disappearing was still startling, and to occur around the same time that this strange weather phenomenon was happening, I don't think it's crazy to make that connection.
No.
Seems weird.
I think it's cool, honestly.
Why not?
What's fascinating about Florida is these things will happen, these phenomenons will happen, and then we'll casually go, by the way, it also ate 12 people.
Right.
and unanimously everyone goes, yeah.
Sure.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
What else is a low pink cloud gonna do? Just don't go
Eat
near
you.
it. Is it weird?
That's
Stay away from it.
Yeah. So we actually covered this a while back, and it's in an area of Florida where a lot of people come from. Like Marjorie Keenan Rawlings is from that area. There's a few other folks historically that are from there. And there was a theory going around that now there's also massive phosphate mining.
Interesting.
And around the time the pink cloud appeared, the folks who purchased vast areas of land there were mining for phosphate initially. And so there was this phenomenon about this weather phenomenon that basically traps gases and doesn't allow them to be released, and mixed a couple things together, and phosphate can become kind of pinkish.
Yeah.
And so,
And
yeah.
also, that was a theory. Do you remember when those hikers died last year? And it ended up being heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
But one of the theories was
one of the
similar.
theories was that there was some gas coming up from like underground caves and mines and stuff that was literally poison. And that was something I'd never heard of before. And that's like super common. So definitely possible.
When you mess with nature, that happens occasionally. She fights back, and I think that's, it could explain a lot of the weirdness about Florida. There's literal like poison gases just begging to be released.
Yeah.
And then you start mining the land, and people are like, "Oh, it ate me," So
the land is literally like, I dare you.
Yeah, the land is begging us not to live here.
Yeah.
And we're just like, you know what? We're going to live here even harder.
Dude, I heard that recently. This kind of freaked me out. I heard recently that the reason you can't really ask artificial intelligence how to fix like global warming is because it will always like work backwards to identify the problem, and the answer will always be eradicate humans.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we can't.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's real cool. We're not ready to hear that.
Shame on us, bro.
I know, we're the worst.
I know, we can't even go there. We don't need to cry. So the legend in the area is essentially that if you got too close to this pink cloud, it would eat the flesh right off of your bones. Even hunters claim to have found deer skeletons picked completely clean in an area where there were no bones or bodies the day before. Interesting. But even crazier, there are legends of the low pink dangerous cloud from 1605. It was recorded by a Spanish explorer named Alvaro Mexia. There are also local Native American legends about the cloud as well.
Okay.
Which, leads me to the theories. Obviously, the underground gas, big theory. Totally support that one. But again, could be a Native American curse. Let's not
I hope so.
forget about the Native American curses that litter our lands. Yep. So there's even a monument still standing from the 50s that depicts this story. And the story goes that Chief Tomoki was a legendary chief of Timucuan. Am I saying that right? Timucuan? Do you know?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Timucuan warriors. One day he got a little too big for his britches, took a golden cup and drank water from a sacred spring, totally violating the practices of his people, disrespecting the land they live on. Huge no-no. So the tribe attacked his ass. They were like, we don't listen. Absolutely not.
No,
not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
We're not doing this with you.
But according to the legend, he was invincible because he drank and kept drinking this sacred water. So he was supposedly being hit with all of these arrows to his body, including his kneecaps, but wouldn't go down. So a beautiful maiden, I don't know why it's always a beautiful maiden and not just like a mom, but
yeah, this mom shows up.
This beautiful MILF named Olita
I love that.
walked up to him, drew her bow, and put a poisoned arrow right in the chief's heart.
Yeah.
And since then, his spirit wanders the mist of the Tomoka River forever.
Wander that mist.
That's romantic,
fun.
dude.
I like
it's a little romantic.
That's romantic.
Got a little saucy. I like that.
The statue is legit falling apart, but it depicts Chief Tomoki standing atop a large mound of rocks with members of his tribe below him pointing their weapons at him as he holds a spear in one hand and spills water from the sacred cup in the other. But what's kind of creepy to me is that the way the water spills out of the cup and down the tribespeople, it looks like mist.
Incredible.
The mist.
Yeah.
Stab me in the heart with a poison arrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What a way to go.
Way to go.
Yeah. Another theory is swamp gas. Thanks, United States government. Like, not everything is swamp gas. And then, the only other theory, which I thought was interesting, because recently, last year, there was a pink cloud over the Jersey Shore, over the shore. There was a pink cloud that like hovered for hours. And they found out that 200 miles away in Virginia, a rocket took off and it released a small quantity of water vapor in the air really close to the vacuum of space,
Mm.
which did something to this water vapor to keep it like, it just like didn't dissipate, and it just floated together and ended up like hovering over the Jersey Shore for hours. But people like, you could look,
Wow.
you can Google like pink cloud Jersey Shore and you could see
Right.
it. It's very strange.
Just a little
But
vape.
it's just a little vape, just a little
Yeah.
puffing some cotton, ripping some
Yeah.
sweet cotton. But that doesn't really explain the 1605 sighting or the Native American. We didn't have rockets
doesn't
then.
add up, right?
No,
Doesn't quite add up.
A lot of First Nation people wrote about the things that we still talk about, you know, and we've changed
absolutely.
We've changed the legends and the lore a little bit, but for the most part, most of it was documented way before we got here.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yep.
Yeah,
Skunk
that's
ape.
right. Skunk ape. I think I'm a little more frightened of a pink cloud than I am skunk ape and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pink
cloud is really freaking me out.
It's unforgiving. And I think when
relentless.
you know, it is. When we covered this, it was like this weird backwards, like you know, Florida Board of Tourism. Like we were listing all the reasons why you shouldn't come here, and then it was like also there's this pink cloud that occasionally shows up and it just eats you.
Yeah.
And then we were like, so good night.
Good
Hope
night.
you had fun. Thanks for listening.
Sweet dreams, love you.
Yeah, if you
Come
live
back
here,
and see us.
you know.
Brutal.
Yeah, but I love that the land of Florida is like so, I don't know, like it's so one-sided on her own survival that even the First Nation people couldn't screw up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you make one wrong step and she's like, that's it.
Yep.
That's
You
it.
know,
I'm sitting in my cloud and I'm eating all
Yep.
your people.
Yeah,
I'm sending Pinky to get you.
Pinky.
Yeah. Come
Oh,
on.
Pinky.
Wayne, what do you have
Yes.
for us today?
Well, okay, so my story starts and ends in a place called the Ocala National Forest. And it is a place that is just, it's beautiful, okay? It's gorgeous. It looks like old Florida, but it's a very naughty place. A lot of bad things happen there. There are dozens and dozens of unmarked graves, even to this day.
Okay.
There are 2 absolute full ghost towns. And by that, I mean, there's just towns that people don't live in anymore. They have left it. And so it just kind of exists, this major piece of land in Florida. And so this one was sent in by one of our listeners because there's this legend, and this is one we were familiar with, about this deer that roams through the Ocala National Forest. And when you see it at first glance, it appears to be like a normal deer. But as you get closer, you can, like, it looks like an accident has happened. Like it's missing some fur and it's been hurt. Been like a bar fight or something, you know.
Little roughed up.
Yeah, or maybe like he's a bad deer and he's in a gang or something, you know.
Yeah,
that's how I sleep at night. A gang deer. He's a bully to the others. But if you see it, and you see the markings and you see like the tore up parts, it's too late for you. Something terrible is going to happen to you. It's more of an omen. And this one also traces back to First Nation people who called Florida home well before the Spanish got here and the rest of us. And their legend was the same. If you saw the deer, something terrible was happening to your people shortly after.
Jeez.
And so we've covered that before. We talked about it and looked into it before. And you know, you at the end of the day, it's similar to the pink cloud. You just chalk it up and go, hey man, like, you know, it's one of the dangers of living here.
Yep.
Just what we have to deal with in our state.
Yeah, and just to be safe, I don't look at any deer. If I see a deer, I look away. You don't want to take any chances.
Oh, I would do the same.
Truly.
Yeah, never take that chance.
No,
like,
on the interstate,
it could be the gang leader.
This could be the one. And so one of our listeners wrote in, and it was last Halloween, and she had said, unfortunately, that her family had seen it like multiple times. And the first time was in the 70s, and her grandmother, they were raised with this story. Her grandmother told them the story about how she was hanging clothes on a clothesline to dry, and her brother saw the deer. She heard the noise, looked up, didn't see anything, but her brother saw it, and her brother was younger than her. They were both grown enough, you know, to know of the legend, I guess. And so her brother got really, really sick and fought this illness for like 3 weeks, ended up passing away.
Oh my God.
And then the second time it happened to a grandchild, and the grandchild's mother, the mother of the child, saw the deer out back on the property, and then had a child pass away shortly after that. And so it's very tragic, almost like Tales of a Haunted Prairie type situation,
Yeah.
where like a lot of folks who pioneered the state, like they saw strange things and then they got sick from weird illnesses and they couldn't explain it, and so the First Nation people, they used the deer and the pink clouds and all these other things to kind of explain it. But this story, this happened to her grandmother and then again to like one of her nieces. And so she at one point in time was out back on the property around Christmas time when she was younger, and she saw what she said looked like a deer that had basically survived a hit and run.
Jeez.
It was like really beat up. And she wasn't thinking about the legend. She immediately was just like, oh my God, like there's something wrong with this animal. And when she ran towards it, like it just kind of, it left and went the other way. And then when she told her family about it, they started reminding her of like, this is awful now. Like, something terrible is going to happen to one of us. And then nothing ever did. Everybody was fine. And so she believed that because she was not afraid of it and that she was concerned for it unknowingly and was pursuing it to help, that there wasn't some kind of weird punishment to follow, because nothing ever happened. And so it's always interesting for us to kind of like have the historic perspective of a legend and then having someone like in real time go, here's why this is real to my family. And then you have to be very careful with it, because I'm very quick to go, oh, it's the US government, or like, oh, it's whatever, but when someone's writing it with like a tangible, like, oh, hey, this like kind of like, this has been something that's bad in my family, I'm like, oh crap, like that's like a real, to them it's very real. It's not like a but that takes place again in the northern part of the Ocala National Forest. And so I have another story to share later if we have time, but they both take place in that same area. And so my larger belief is that there's just something in that neck of the woods. There's something there that's causing these weird things to spawn, these weird almost spiritual
is going
things.
on.
I mean, there's definitely
which national
places...
forests always.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There's definitely places all over. There's the is it Barrington Triangle in Connecticut? I think it's called Barrington. I could be wrong.
Is that the one we talked about forever ago?
Where like they're like a lot of disappearances take place there, and they're all weird. It's always like this guy was traveling on a bus through there, and when they got to the stop, he was gone, but his luggage was still there. Like, what happened to this guy?
Right.
And I just think there are places in the world, I know that like some woo-woo people might chalk it up to like ley lines, which is, something in the community. Like I don't know what it is, but ley lines where like certain things intersect, and it makes that area, maybe if you believe that Bigfoot is interdimensional, maybe this is just a window, like a vortex that Bigfoot can come in and out of. And like maybe there's a weird vortex in this national park too. Maybe maybe that is why the national parks were developed in the first place, to protect these portals.
I
have
love
to be
the idea.
Protected because of what exists within them.
Like Teddy Roosevelt, right? Like
Teddy.
He was the one. Uncle Teddy was like, hey, there's some nasty stuff in there, and for your own good, you shouldn't go.
You shouldn't live there, at least.
Well,
nobody can build a house here.
I think too, like, there's dead folks everywhere. So it's almost hard sometimes to go like, well, there's increased activity because people died there. I'm like, people die everywhere, especially in Florida. But I do think there's something to the disrespect of large areas of like, if someone's been buried and ceremoniously, and there's like ancestral burials, when that land is disrespected in some way, I do think there's possibly an increased chance of something naughty happening afterwards, or nasty happening. And I think in the Ocala National Forest, when you have modern day like abandoned graves that are just like pushed aside, they're unmarked, people kick them over all the time on hiking trails, I think there's something to that. I think the land is like, hey, you know what, piss off, because like I mean like here's this haunted deer, you know what I mean, like whatever, and I think there's something to it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to do this, But Lauren, what do you have for us today?
I
What
always
horrific story did you bring us?
I ruin everything. I had to be true to myself and bring
Mhm.
a dark crime story, but just know
Oh.
that later in the episode I brought some more silly Florida crimes, which we all love.
Good.
We all
Good.
love to talk about the Florida
We
man,
gotta
so we're gonna
cleanse
do
our
that later.
palate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't get a little dark. So I apologize, Wayne. I feel like this is the darkest you're gonna get as a podcast.
I emptied my sad tank before I came on the show. My
Ugh,
sad tank
thank
is at
goodness.
neutral now. I'm ready to receive.
And I will try not to overflow.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a dark, horrible thing that happened, but it also strangely is like so Florida man as well, and you will see why.
Mm.
Okay. So just after sundown on March 13th, 2021, a
Dang.
Florida man confessed to the police that he had just killed his grandfather with a baseball bat and a knife, and then he handed them something to prove it. Does anyone want to guess what he handed them before I jump
Hand.
in? Ashley says hand.
An ear.
Okay, we have hand and ear. Let's find out what happened. So authorities arrived at the home of 77-year-old Ronald Wells Sr., and they were met by a 30-year-old man named Kolby Parker sitting on the porch with Wells' bloody corpse just laying out beside him on the porch. Super casual. The elderly man was unresponsive and pronounced dead at the scene, unfortunately. Parker, the 30-year-old, initially told authorities that he was Wells' son and that after smoking some marijuana, the two got into a little bit of a fight and his father came at him with a knife. And so in self-defense, he had to come at him with deadly force.
I don't buy it.
He had no other choice. He was
I don't buy
scared to death, he said.
Marijuana does not do that.
That's
Marijuana makes you chill, bruh.
Yeah, that wouldn't make you fight. That wouldn't make you aggressive.
It was Methijuana.
It was the good old Methijuana. So he was quoted as saying, "I just had a Vietnam veteran attack me. I had to defend myself, and I'm sorry it got out of control."
Okay.
So then Parker said that he stabbed Wells in the heart 4 times. And investigators also found that one of the older man's forearms was bloody and had been partially degloved, meaning the skin had been removed. So
Wow.
brutal.
Gosh.
And again, I won't go, that's all I'm going to say. I won't go any deeper, but it was brutal.
Degloved.
So later, investigators found a shrine with bloody plastic, like fake human ears in Parker's room. And above it was a sign that said "The Family Butcher" next to an apron. So police quickly determined that Parker's story had to have been partially wrong, and he was maybe up to a little something more than they thought. So they get to talking to him a bit more. They're, trying to coax a little more out of him, and they find out that 77-year-old Wells actually wasn't his father at all. It was his grandfather. Why even lie about that?
Why even lie? That's so weird.
No clue. And then they start patting him down because they're like, okay, we're going to have to take you in. And they feel something soft to the touch, but firm in his pocket.
He's like, "Sir, I'm married.
Sir, please.
Sir, please buy me dinner." So Parker reaches into his pocket, like without a fight. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you what's in there." He pulls out 2 human ears. Wayne, you were right.
Wayne, did you know this story?
I do it for a living.
He pulled out 2 human ears and said, "Ronnie and Ronnie Jr. right here for you." Oh, this man.
Oh my God.
And what's even weirder is as he's holding out the ears, he is conversing so calmly with the officers, basically beginning to just tell them his whole truth, everything that actually happened, and then casually says, "Hey, can I have your gun?" And this is all captured on body cam footage too. You can watch it online. It's insane. He says, "Can I have your gun?" They're all like, what? What are you talking about? And then suddenly, yeah, no, you can't. Then suddenly he snaps out of his calm marijuana state, what we would think would be a marijuana state, and then becomes violent and lunges for the officer's gun hanging on his belt. And then like a little bit of a scuffle ensues. They're able to subdue him pretty quickly after some, kicks and headbutts here. And then they use the taser and they have him on the ground. They take him in. He, like, no issues. Like, he's arrested, he's convicted, everything. But he kept trying to change his story a little bit, saying like, oh, well, I only used the bat. Oh, no, well, then I skinned him. Oh, no, well, then I did this. And just basically they couldn't ever get to the bottom of why it happened. All he kept saying was, we were, smoking a little bit, laughing a little bit, and then suddenly it turned violent and we were fighting, which again, that just doesn't track. So
No.
I think either they
what's going on with the
knowingly,
bloody shrine?
again, no clue. He was just like, it's just a thing, just a little collection.
That
little
guy's got more
hobby.
bodies.
Yeah.
I know.
Everybody's weird to somebody, and I think his hobby of like stacking up bloody ears and then just conveniently having his pawpaw's ears in his pocket, it's like, it doesn't take an expert to connect the dot. It's like
Yeah.
there's this guy's an ear guy,
This guy's got a thing.
He's an ear guy. He's into the ears.
And we don't shame, but
yeah.
you can't kill folks and take their ears.
Yeah, and did he kill
I was gonna
to
say,
get the ears?
I believe
Was it
so.
just the obsession with the ears? What did it?
See, that's the thing. Like, he admitted to, like wanting the ears. Like that was a thing to him. That was something that he wanted of his grandfathers to keep to himself after he was gone. That was the other weird thing. He started to suddenly be like so loving.
Yeah.
Like I think I mostly did it because we were already fighting, and then I realized, well, I want my grandpop to be with my grandma who's already passed away, so I might as well,
Does he
just
have
put
her
him to
ears?
rest.
I was about to say, he's got hair.
He doesn't. Well, no. Well, they didn't find any other human ears, just the plastic ones. And I think the other family members would have been like, that is interesting that in the open casket funeral, she didn't have her ears. No,
Granny
he didn't have
didn't have
anyone
her
else's ears. But yeah, apparently he wanted to reunite his grandparents. And that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day was, just like a peaceful
That's
offering.
nice.
So,
yeah,
but I think the marijuana was Methijuana, as you said, and that guy's got
that is such a
satanic.
It's such a satanic panic story of like, and it all happened because they were smoking weed.
Yeah.
The wacky weed.
Gateway drug.
Yeah, a gateway drug to murder.
To taking ears.
The real surprise in this story is that the cop wasn't like, yeah, you can hold my gun, I guess. You know what I mean? Like,
I know,
sure.
Such a Florida thing. Sure.
Sure, why not? You can check it out.
Seems like a cool kid.
I know.
Can you have my what?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That was thoroughly awful.
Yep. Awful, but like Florida. It just felt right.
I was gonna say it didn't even put a dent in my sad tank. Because it's just so wacky. Like it's just so weird. Like I feel bad for the pawpaw, yeah. But like at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. And an officer patted him down and was like, "What is this like soft but firm thing in your pocket?" And he was like, "Oh, it's some ears, bro." Like what?
Just my ears.
It is
just the ears. And again, this is all caught on body cam footage. The ears and the "can I see your gun" moment is all on video.
Did he call the police? Who called the police?
He did call the police.
So he called the police and then was just like, you know what?
Himself. Yeah.
I'm not going to take down my bloody ear
shrine.
I've worked hard on it.
I've worked hard on it.
Yep.
It's mine.
This has taken me years.
And it certainly won't raise any red flags.
Nope.
You know what, man? I mean, like, it depends on what county you're in. Because if he had been like in Polk County,
might have gotten away with it.
I think so. Or he would have been shot like 20 yards away. You just never know.
Go either way. Yeah.
It's a roll the dice. But I do think, there probably was some heavier drugs involved. That tends to be the case. Folks do a little meth, recreationally, and then they start skinning people alive. So I think that that's actually a pretty common occurrence in Florida, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You can't do drugs,
Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah. Now we sound like that liberal dare program in school.
I really wish I could find a photo of myself from childhood in like my dare shirt. Just so I could put it next to me now and be like, look at this nerd.
I remember getting one of those shirts and they made you promise, like, you're not going to do alcohol. You're not going to do marijuana. And then there was like a picture of like Bill Clinton in the background for some reason. And it was just like, there's this whole, like, you're not gonna do any of this stuff. And I was like, I won't do nothing. Give me that shirt. And I put the shirt on and I was just like, man, I'm cool. but you weren't cool, you know?
No.
No.
Total
I think
nerd.
it's very cool for kids to not do drugs, and I think it's very lame for adults to not do drugs.
Yeah,
That's a great way to put it.
Kids don't need
Yes.
drugs. What do you have to worry about?
Yeah,
Right.
That's right. What are
I
you
have
trying to
bills to
forget
pay.
about in your life?
I got
Yeah.
taxes.
I'm stressed.
I'm stressed out.
When you're
You're-
over 18, you've earned that privilege.
You've
That's
earned
right.
the privilege.
We
to
actually
do
say to my
drugs.
daughters, my oldest daughter's 9, and she, you know, she's going on like 35. She's very
Sure.
smart, very artsy. She's an entertainer. She's great. But we told her like, hey, dude, like there's just some things grown-ups can do that you can't do, and that's
Yeah.
like the whole debate's over. Like you can't
Yeah.
drive. You also
Sorry.
can't smoke cigarettes. You know, like you can't
Yeah.
like say the F word. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're 9. So
Yeah.
Right.
sorry.
Sorry about it.
But
That's
one
how it
day
goes.
you'll get to, and it's gonna be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. The only rule in our house is
Uh.
just don't cut your pawpaw's ears off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like
Yeah.
it's like
It's like this little
I wanna
ask
keep my
that we
ears.
have. Like
We don't
we
ask
all
for
want to keep
much.
our ears
Yeah.
on. Like if you could let
100%.
us have that, please.
yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
my
I think-
thing
I
for
think that's fair.
anyone who is young, who's a teenager, who's listening, because I know we have some young listeners.
We
Yeah.
do.
I really do encourage you to not drink and do drugs until you're an adult, because your brain is not fully formed, and you don't
Mhm.
want to be an idiot
Yeah.
when
No,
you get to
that's
be.
good advice.
I have friends who drank a lot or smoked a lot of weed in high school. I never did. Who are idiots now. And the only thing, like, we had the same education. The only thing I
Right.
can think of is that they smoked and drank a lot in high school, and it fucked up their brain forever.
That's great
So-
advice.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
You don't want to be a
Also,
moron.
Yeah.
Therapy is really cool. Start going when you're young.
Therapy's super
Therapy.
dope, guys.
Oh my gosh.
It's a
yes.
miracle. No drugs, no drink, therapy.
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 Don't
Boom.
take ears.
Cannot
Okay.
sell therapy enough. And don't take
Wayne-
anybody's ears.
Have you, perchance, read about
Mm.
or visited a place known as Casadega, Florida?
Yes, it's both.
You visited?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Lauren.
Okay,
Lauren,
tell me everything. Because why are
buckle
both
up.
of you so excited? Okay, I'm not ready, but here we go.
Casadega is about 30 minutes southwest of Daytona Beach. So it's a totally
Okay.
doable addition if you need to add some strangeness to your next, Daytona Beach vacay.
I think of
It's
like
not-
spring break, your spring break
Yes,
vacation to
exactly.
Daytona. Okay.
But you need to take a little day trip to
Sure.
Casadega. It's not technically a city, it's an unincorporated community, and it is known as the psychic capital of the world.
Fun.
And it's a community full of mediums and psychics.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay.
Pam?
I almost talked about this when we did our weirdest places on earth episode, but I was like, this isn't included because I don't think it's weird. It's where I want to live. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm packing my bags now.
Yeah.
Casadega was founded in 1875 when a spiritualist named George Kolby arrived by train and steamboat to Central Florida. I did include the train and steamboat to let you know that it was a trip, okay,
It
in
was a journey.
1875
Yeah.
from New
Well
York
traveled.
City to
Yep.
Florida.
He put in the
Um,
work.
George actually became a spiritualist as a young child after he got baptized, because he was baptized in freezing lake water when he was a kid, and he passed out because the water was so cold, and he believes that he may have died because after his baptism, he believes that he has direct contact with those on the other side. Like
Yeah.
that's where
I
all of
buy it.
his
I believe that.
mediumship skills came from, was the baptism.
This
Happened to
poor
me in a
kid.
Happened to me in the bathtub one time.
And now I can talk to the dead. So he became interested in the occult and eventually became a spiritualist by
Wow.
trade. He left his strict Baptist parents' home very early. They were not super thrilled about seeing dead people.
Yeah.
Mm.
I get it.
Mhm.
No.
He would perform lectures and seances, and during one seance, Kolby said that one of his spirit guides, an indigenous American named Seneca, described to him a parcel of land on which Kolby could build a spiritualist retreat. So he and his family traveled to what is today Casadega, Florida, and what was then just like total wilderness. Like there was nothing
Yeah.
there. So they set up camp nonetheless, and before long, they started accepting visitors, many of which became inhabitants. A lot of the homes, hotels, and auditoriums from his time are still standing today, although not
Very
like
cool.
the upkeep isn't
Sure.
great, but whatever. Cassadaga is actually a Seneca word for water beneath the rocks, which I think is super intriguing on a paranormal level, seeing as that is one of the theories for locations with large amounts of paranormal activity, that it could have something to do with the kinetic energy of the space, specifically running water over or under rocks that keeps the energy circulating there. Guys,
Interesting.
I like that.
Cassadagans were always and still are known for their egalitarianism. They, even back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they would put women in leadership roles long before women even had voting rights. They fought for
Love
the
it.
abolition of slavery despite living in the South, and they even went head to head once with the KKK back in the 70s.
Ooh.
So
That's right.
Cassadaga
Obsessed.
now today has about 70 full-time residents on about 57 acres of land. It's a nonprofit religious organization. There's about 170 members in total. But that group of people includes 43 certified mediums, which is apparently not something just everyone can say they are. It takes like 6 years of education and testing to become a certified medium. I didn't know
Okay.
that. And we've
No.
had episodes on mediums. So hello.
Right. I know.
All of their religious and spiritual services are open to the public, and so is their community in general. You can visit the town and all its little shops. There are no stoplights or brand name stores, though, so don't expect to swing by Walmart or Starbucks while you're there. You can even come in and walk through their fairy trail, which is just a trail completely decorated with makeshift altars, which is very cool.
Love.
Very cute.
There's a welcome center right as you enter the camp. It's called the Andrew Jackson Davis Educational Building and Bookstore. At least that's what the sign outside reads. And it sells metaphysical gifts, books, and souvenirs for the town. And it's also there that you can find a large binder listing all the contact information for the mediums that live there that are currently taking appointments. So
Very
sorry,
cool.
Illinois. I'm leaving. I gotta move to Pasadena, Florida.
Sorry about
What a
it.
cool place.
Yeah,
It-
I want to go.
From what I understand, and it's also not very competitive. You would think, like if you have 45 burger joints in one town,
Right.
yeah, there's going to be some tension.
Yeah.
But the medians
Right.
there, not so much. It's a very sweet community. We had the privilege of visiting, and everyone is incredibly nice. It's
love
a
it.
beautiful place. It is such a vibe. My favorite part is how George, goes under the water. Yeah, gets a little cold, passes out, comes back, and is like, I need to get paid for this. You know what I mean? Like instantly, he's like, how can I incorporate?
Let's
But
make
yeah,
something out of this.
I need a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting because we actually read some stories that some listeners had submitted of some of the cool things that the townsfolks did, and one was battling off the KKK, which is like so legendary.
Obsessed with that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And there was some other legends and stuff about folks who were like hurt and terrorized in Cassadaga, and we dug into it, and it's not true. A lot of Baptist folks in the surrounding areas were trying to spread rumors about the place, and so they started making up stories about how folks were getting murdered there and like all this different stuff, and none of it was true, and it's in fact the opposite. So
The
Well,
petty
that's
high
something
school
about-
gossip.
That's something
Yeah.
about spiritualists and occultists and even Satanists that is very misunderstood. A lot of people hear those
Sure.
words and they're immediately like danger, like evil, danger.
Right.
And it's like
right.
they're pretty chill people. Like I don't know of any
They
actual
come in
Satanists
peace.
who have even hurt an animal. Like that's against their beliefs.
For sure.
So
They're just trying to
100%.
chill.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100. And it unfortunately, not to draw like unhealthy parallels, but when you look at what happened like in Salem, that's a really popular example. People probably recognize that. Unfortunately, that stuff happened all over the country.
Oh yeah.
And it just wasn't as as popular.
Right.
But in Florida, when we joke around and say this place is a lawless swamp, that is very true. And so up until Florida was considered frontier in some areas in like the 1930s. So
Wow.
not that long ago, it was
Yeah.
considered frontier in Florida. And so unfortunately, you had areas like Casadega, and where some Baptist ministers like, you know what? They're all witches, and they're all also doing these things. We need to kill
Mhm.
them. And it just happened under the radar. And
Yeah.
people, you know, and you never hear about it unless you really
Yeah.
dig into it.
Which part of
So
me is
true.
like dope. Just in the sense that
Like in like the Mad Max sense of it.
yeah, in the sense that like, you know what? Take care of your own shit. Like who
Yeah.
needs
Yeah.
to involve the government every step of the way? Who needs
Right.
to involve law enforcement every time you have a problem? Deal with that shit. But at the same time,
Mm.
don't mess
Yeah.
with some sweet little spiritualists who are just like
Yeah.
minding their own business.
I know. Truly just doing their own thing.
Just
Get out of
hanging
their
out,
space.
living in the
I-
woods.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I didn't believe what we were selling on this show until 2020 when COVID happened and the whole world's on lockdown. No one's doing anything. And we had a friend of ours that owned a local business. And I called and I was like, hey, how can we help? Like, what can we do? We want to get dinner. Are you serving? And he was like, yeah, we're doing curbside to go. We'll leave it on the steps. You can pick it up. Do you want a bag of alcohol? And I go, come. And I go, come. Yeah, what?
What?
Come again?
Is that
What's that?
Yes.
an option?
The answer is
and
yes.
he said, yeah, the state's allowing us just to serve like unregulated alcohol because it's the end of the world and why not?
Mhm. Yep.
And so we got a Ziploc bag of mimosa. And
That
we were
is
just like
phenomenal.
driving down the road with this gallon-sized bag, and I looked over at my wife and I go, I think this is it. Like, I don't think we're
Yeah.
coming back from this. I think this
No.
is like this is Florida in its true form.
Yeah.
No one's checking in
No
on us
rules,
anymore.
man.
Right.
Yeah, and
Lawlessness.
we made it out, but goodness gracious.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Wayne, I want to hear your other story from the national park, please.
Yes.
It's brief. Yeah, Ocala
please.
National Forest. It's brief, but
Yeah.
some men were on a what's the opposite of like a hen party? Like a bachelor party, I guess.
Yeah.
Cock night.
Yeah, they
Cock
were.
night,
It was
sure.
it was a big cock night with a bunch of guys, and they were in the woods, as
Sure.
those things happen, you know.
Yep.
And they were
That's why
hiking.
I have my cock nights.
Yeah, I've been invited to a few, and so they were out in the woods and celebrating, and they decided to stop halfway through the hiking at this cabin. And it was like a one-room cabin, like it wasn't anything fancy, it wasn't storming or anything. They were just taking a breather, and one of the guys found a bunch of old stuff, like a bunch of boxes of old stuff, and he
And
starts
what
going.
do we do when we find a bunch of boxes of old stuff in an abandoned cabin?
We claim
don't
it as our own.
touch it. Oh.
We
So that-
unpack it and keep it in our house.
They didn't follow the rules.
Oh.
But they found a journal in one of the boxes, and in the journal, it was kind of a glorified like sign-in sheet that you would find like at an Airbnb, you
Okay,
know, where it's like,
interesting.
oh, I stayed here and it was great.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the first half of the journal was an actual journal of a woman who had supposedly built the cabin, her and her husband, in the true frontier days of Florida. They had traveled there because the state was giving away land. In the same way that Alaska was doing not too long ago. Like, they want people to live here, so they're giving away plots of land. And so her and her husband traveled here, and the nearest neighbor was 30 miles away.
God
And
bless.
so, yeah, and so they built this cabin, and shortly after living there, she was journaling because he was always out doing homestead stuff. You know, he wasn't around. And she was journaling about how, like, you know, at nighttime she hears things, and her husband is very religious, and he was saying how she probably should pray more, and it's always like, you know,
Of
really
course.
antiquated, you know, responses. And the journal entries begin to get more and more frantic and more frightening. And then, unfortunately, about a third of the way through, one of them, she says, you know, my husband's gone to town and he's going to get help for me. He's going to get some medicines and supplies and stuff. He'll be back in a week, but I fear that I won't make it through the week. And after her husband left, she began detailing, you know, knocks and scratches at the door, voices that were saying to her that, like, we want the baby belongs to us. And she had no knowledge of even being pregnant. She had no idea that she was actually with child.
Wow.
And so in one of the entries, after like day 3 or 4, she says, you know, my husband's calling to me, and he's outside the door, but he can't get in, so I'm going to let him in. And that was the last entry by her. in the journal. And so essentially, whatever the voice was or whatever the entity was that was causing her to kind of, unfortunately go mad, began to mimic her dear husband. And so she let it in. And so when you rewind and you look back, a lot of First Nation folks who lived here, they had legends of spirits that owned and ruled the land before they even arrived. But you had to, kind of like the old vampiric legends, you had to invite them in. They could not come into your dwelling. And so unfortunately this one seemed to have tricked her. And so these gentlemen found this journal in the cabin, along with a bunch of other entries that were just punk teenagers, writing and stuff. And so there is no like, the book is very dated. I think the early date on it was like 1920-ish. So it is possible that it was just left there for years and years and years.
Yeah.
It could be a prank, but if it's a prank, we're talking like someone before the Titanic or shortly after the Titanic was like, oh, let's trick some people with a journal.
Yeah, I'm gonna write this journal, and maybe in 100 years, people
somebody will find it. Right? Yeah, it's actually more far-fetched to believe it's a prank than the other way around. I agree. But yeah, and again, that happened in the northern part of the Ocala National Forest.
Ooh,
that
forest. That it reminded me a lot of the Bell Witch story that I told this Halloween. I don't know if you remember, Lauren.
Of course,
it's a terrifying story of a voice that could mimic other people just showing up in this cabin and terrorizing this family.
But what if it was nightmare. What if it did like Barack Obama or something? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
I would definitely open the door. I'd be so excited.
For me, that would be it. I'm like in this cabin. I'm like so scared, and they're just like, I'm not gonna try to do it. But you know what I mean?
I did want to hear your impression.
No, I can't. But if they were just like, hey, it's me, Obama, I would be like, well, I mean, dang it, man, come in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
come right in, sir.
Let's talk about it. So
let's chat.
And then my journal would end. So
and then that's it. That's all he wrote. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Well, so we've been talking for a while. Should I move to my sillies and not do another dark one? Probably.
Yeah. Let's do some silly.
Let's do a silly.
Let's do some sillies.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did my everything just go? Okay. Some sillies. Florida man. Let's go.
These are official Florida man stories.
Yep, they are real. These are real news stories, little crimes that happened. A Florida man in Vero Beach. Where's Vero Beach? Do you know? Does that mean anything to you, Wayne?
Yeah, it's on the coast.
It's there. Okay. A beach. Yep. It is.
Yeah.
Okay. A Florida man in Vero Beach had a very interesting defense when he was charged with a DUI. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office responded to a report at a McDonald's where a woman claimed that her car was being repeatedly collided with. Somebody was behind her, just hitting her bumper over and over, like very lightly, but just they were clearly out of control. And when she would look back, like the guy,
like in the drive-thru.
Yeah, in the drive-thru, and she could tell something was off with him, and she's like, "Somebody help me!" So police are called, and they see this man like taking his foot on and off the gas, like clearly like feeling himself, feeling good. And they say, we need you to step out of the car, blah, blah, blah. And when they ask, what's going on? Have you been drinking tonight? He said, I am feeling pretty good. And then he takes a huge swig of his Jim Beam bottle just right in front of everyone.
Oh.
And they're like, oh, okay, well, okay, so you're drinking and driving. Like, we see you're not even going to try and fight it. Like, okay, come with us. You're arrested. And he said, well, wait. I wasn't drinking while the car was moving. I would only drink when it was stopped, like at stop signs and traffic signs. And when I was stopped in the drive-thru.
Workaround.
Right.
So like when I was accelerating, I was never drinking. And he truly tried to talk himself out of this and sat there at the McDonald's and negotiated, but he did indeed get arrested. Spoiler.
Okay. Weird. Here's the thing. Is he wrong?
Well,
I mean, you got to find those little workarounds to
I know
tickets.
I respect that he was trying to find the loophole, but yeah, that's difficult.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where if the cops are involved, I tend to go like, well, I'm gonna side with the other guy until it gets like too, crazy, like cutting your pawpaw's ears off and stuff. But like with this one, I kind of feel like if I were a cop, I'd be like, dude, you know what? Kudos.
Good
like you you solved the law. Like
You
you
did
figured
it.
it out.
You solved the law.
He solved
Yeah.
the law.
So yeah, I
Uh,
side with him. I
all
side
right.
with this guy.
So we're all voting. He should have
I
been
think
let
so,
go.
yeah.
He should have
Yeah.
at least been allowed to get his McDonald's. I hope that they still let him get his food when he was put in the back of the car. Like I hope he got his double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I do
you're
hope
right.
that.
I believe he did.
Okay. The next Florida man was in Orlando, which I feel like I hear a lot of Orlando stories and like I get it. I like it. A Florida man in Orlando blocked the path of a truck by performing flips in the middle of a very busy road.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Officers were called to the scene and approached this very enthusiastic gymnast. And as soon as they started to get close to him, he started doing flips and cartwheels to escape their grasp. Every time their hands would get close to him, he would do a cartwheel or a backflip or a round off, whatever he could pull out to get away. And there is a viral video online that is pretty funny of this man. He's in like skin tight pants, like the tight, you're seeing everything.
How
like,
is his
which again,
form?
Yeah.
pretty good.
Really?
Especially because
Okay.
his shoes are broken, like the sole is ripped off from the bottom, and so they're flapping around, which would trip me up. Like I would not be able to do
Not
a good
him,
cartwheel,
though.
but and he's
Yeah.
wearing a crop top as well. So like tight belly exposing clothes, which also I feel like could hinder someone, but he was in it
Him.
performing his acrobats. And
I can't believe this. Will you send me a picture?
I can send you the video. No, and he, when I say his form was good, like should he go to the Olympics? No, but
No.
impressive for like his broken shoes. He did look
Right.
like he had, maybe he had taken something earlier in the night or taken a little
Methijuana?
sip of something, maybe the
Yeah.
Methijuana.
Mhm.
But it did seem as if he thought he was auditioning for some sort of dance team, and this was like the big performance, and the cops were just, they were impeding on it.
Interrupting?
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then finally they were able to detain him. But you know what?
Yeah.
I like that he tried. I
You
really
know what
respect it.
You know what stops a flip? A
What?
taser. Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much.
That'll
Right in
bring you
its
down
tracks.
real quick.
Okay, well let me ask you two. Can either one of you do a flip?
No.
No.
Forward. Okay, so same. I can't do one frontwards. I can't do one backwards.
Mm-mm.
So what if it's like something that you just like acquire? I've never known anyone to practice flips. I've never seen that in my life. So what if you just get this gift of like a flip? Like it's
One.
gifted to you, and
Everyone
you
gets
can't...
one flip.
Right, but if you inherited that, you would go, look what I can do, and I
Look
would
what
be
I can
showing
do.
everybody.
Exactly.
I would show
would-
everybody if I could do flips.
Where's the busiest road? I'm gonna go to it, and
Yep. I'm not
I'm
even
just
going to let this
flipping.
truck
I'm
get
just gonna
by
flip.
because this truck
No.
driver needs to see my flips. And
No.
yeah, it is impressive. I even
you
think
made a good point, actually. I'm on his side now.
being able to do a cartwheel is even impressive to me. My son called me out the other day because he was trying to do a cartwheel as he saw somebody do it on one of his YouTube videos. And he said, Mom, will you show me how to do a cartwheel? And I was like, I'll give it the old college try, but I really don't
Yeah.
think I can do a cartwheel anymore. And I did one of the most hideous versions of a cartwheel that's ever been done. It is so hard to
I've
get
never
legs above your body that way.
successfully cartwheeled. Not once.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a cartwheel is unique in the sense that it's one of the only things you can do where you feel like it looks good. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
doing it,
that's
you're
true.
like,
Feel
that
really
was a
like,
solid
that was
8
good,
out of
right?
10. That was
And
a
everyone
good
was
cartwheel.
like, your legs were bent the whole time.
Yeah, and then your
Yeah,
son's
you
like, I
were
want a
bent.
divorce. Yeah, like that's not even, yeah, yeah.
Ashley will like this one. A Florida man in Emerald City,
Oh.
which
Like
What?
Pokemon.
was arrested outside of a strip club for attempting to smuggle in his cat.
Okay.
And it's not a euphemism. I have to clear that up, like just we're talking about a strip club. No, he had a cat.
Yeah.
His name was Everett. He tried to enter the Emerald City Gentlemen's Club with his favorite feline from home, but he was
What's the
refused entry
problem?
when the wiggling
Yeah.
lump under his shirt was trying to escape after he entered the joint. And 911 was called because he was refusing to leave after asked several times. And he was like, me and my bud, little, I don't know what his name was. We're going to call him Stewie, little Stewie, the kitty. We want to come in. He was so intoxicated that no taxi wanted to pick him up, and he did have to go sit in the drunk tank. And
Did the cat get to go with him? Here's the thing. I
He
do not
didn't,
see the
sadly.
problem. I think this strip club is far too strict.
That's
Yes.
what I'm saying. What is the cat doing wrong? He was just chilling.
It's a cat.
The
Let that cat in to see them titties.
He was just snuggling in his shirt.
The kitty needs titties. You know what I mean?
Kitty needs titties.
I think it is quite rude, and I think that it's fascinating to me. Like whenever there's a crime, and I'm using quotation marks right now, and there's a crime where like someone gets arrested for something so ludicrous, where it's like, bro, like he just wanted to bring a cat in. Like,
right.
There's been worse things.
There are
brought
so
into
many
a strip
worse
club.
things.
I guarantee you.
1,000%.
And
the
it's
guy's
Florida,
probably sweet.
so it's Florida.
Yeah.
So guns were probably allowed in there, but not
Meth.
a cat.
Yeah, 100%.
Drugs, guns, no
And
cats though.
This guy loves his cat enough to bring his cat. He's probably a nice guy.
Probably sweetie.
He's probably the guy you want to be in there. Tips well, you know.
I'm on his side again.
I am too. I feel like I've
three
been
for
on
3.
3 for 3.
Yeah.
I feel like all these guys are just living their truth.
Yep.
And
till the cops show up.
Till the cops show up.
Cops are ruining all of the fun
Honestly.
in these situations. Yeah.
Defund the police.
If there's ever been an argument for defunding the
It's
police,
just a poster
this is it.
of Stuart the cat.
Little Stuart popping out of the guy's shirt at the strip club, like, let him in.
Yeah.
Let him in.
Okay, let's see if we can go 4 for 4. This will be my last one. My last silly. There was a Florida man who was going through a Wendy's drive-thru. We're back in a fast food drive-thru.
Okay.
And he flung an alligator through the drive-thru window after finding the reptile on the side of the road.
Okay.
He tried to order a drink from employees, and when he got up to the window, he was throwing it into their zone. They all screamed and flipped out and had to scatter away. And he tried to toss money at them as well, saying like, hey, I gave you a gator and my money now.
I paid
give me my drink.
Right.
And he didn't have enough money. I also thought that was a fun little note of the story. Like the change wasn't correct for the drink. And when police were called and he was arrested on the spot, he said, it was just a stupid prank. I'm a prankster. This is just what I like to do. Isn't it harmless when like actually somebody could have gotten really hurt? And I don't think the gator attacked anyone because it was terrified as well, but it did, I think like the way it was flung, it did claw into one of the workers a little bit. So like somebody did get hurt because of it. And
maybe if you threw a squirrel in, we might go, well, okay, that's, you know what?
A squirrel could go apeshit on somebody too, but yeah, maybe.
I feel bad for the gator. I feel bad.
That's also animal cruelty a bit.
Yeah. And also those poor people at Wendy's, man, just trying to work, you know, and
trying to sling their spicy chicken sandwiches.
Right, and they get
delicious.
a gator toss at them.
A gator, and like a small one, but nonetheless a gator. I feel bad for the workers.
A dinosaur
and the gator
got thrown in a window at their face.
Yes,
like
1,000%. It's
not
terrifying.
not on his team. This guy lost me.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff I agree, and this is the kind of stuff that like when folks hear it, they go, "That's not real, right? Like that didn't really happen." It's
but in Florida, it did.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a Tuesday night at Wendy's.
And the judge, if anyone wants to know the end of the story, he did have to go to court because again, like people were hurt, things happened. He could never visit a Wendy's again. And he wasn't allowed to own a gun, which, like a fair, but then also he wasn't allowed to touch anyone's dog. And I don't know why that was part of the rule, but he's not allowed to touch people's dogs.
Does the punishment fit the crime, though?
Yeah, that's
the confusing thing.
Everybody calm down for a second, okay?
I know.
The guy can't pet a
I'd
dog
rather
the rest
go
of
to
his life.
prison. I'd rather go to prison.
Lock me up.
I wonder if it has to do with the animal cruelty of it all, and that he found this gator just living its life on the side of the road, picked it up, got into the car to be part of his prank, and it's like that wasn't his pet. That was just I don't know. I was just trying to think like why.
Yes.
But then why not be able to touch cats or guinea pigs? I don't know why it's just dogs, but
yeah. That is interesting. We used to have signs in Florida that said don't molest the alligators, and they were like official like government signs. They weren't like funny signs or anything. And then like 3 years ago, someone was like, we should change the verbiage on that. because that feels weird. And I'm like, at this point, bro, it's been like 50 years.
Yeah.
Like no one's molesting alligators, like
No.
leave them be, leave it alone. And they changed it, and now the sign in a lot of places just says like, warning, there's alligators here. And I'm like, bro, what? That's not what the original meaning was at all.
No,
Yeah.
It was,
that totally changes it.
yeah, stop being mean to gators. Stop throwing them through
Quit it.
windows.
Yes, leave them alone. Don't
Cut
throw
it
them through a
out.
drive-through window.
Bring them to a strip club.
Bring them to a strip club. Speaking of
There you
signs
go.
that got changed that break my heart, when I was growing up in Walnut Hill, Illinois, there was one sign that was essentially, it's like, slow down, there are children in the area.
Yeah.
But the sign said, beware the children.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Respect.
And
Yep.
I would
remember
do
those.
anything to go back in time to steal that beware the children sign.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I feel like if you're driving around, you see a sign that says beware the children, you're going to be like, am I in a Stephen King novel? Like,
Right. Like,
beware
what are the
Easily.
kids doing?
children.
Why are they
doing to you?
evil? I remember those signs, and
Yeah,
now
it's like
what does
the
it
beginning
say?
of slow children playing,
Slow, yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
Which then people make the joke that it's like slow children
Exactly.
playing
It's
as
like,
opposed
yep,
to slow
yep,
children
yep.
playing. Yeah,
Right.
but beware the children.
That's so good.
So much better.
Oh, I miss that. That was good
It's
times.
so good.
Okay,
Simpler
Wayne,
times.
is there anything to, because I heard this and I don't know if this is true. The reason so many crazy news stories, Florida men stories specifically, come out of Florida has something to do with reporting in Florida.
It's true. That's part of the reason. It's the Sunshine State Law, Sunshine Law. It's a law that promotes journalistic visibility. And so essentially, the crimes that a lot of states can kind of cover up. And if you do something naughty, like bringing a cat to a strip club, and you are in like Georgia or somewhere, you can go, hey, I don't want anybody to know that. And they can go, cool. In Florida, everybody goes, nope. We're posting it tomorrow.
We're broadcasting it.
We're putting
everywhere.
a picture of you and your address. You're being
I already
doxxed.
tweeted it.
Honestly, maybe if we did that, well, no, didn't work in Florida. Why would I think it would work anywhere else? I was
Right,
going to
no.
say maybe if we did that everywhere, people wouldn't do such crazy stuff. But
You'd
clearly,
feel a little more shame, but nope.
you
That's
guys
a
have
lot.
Florida men stories literally every single week on your show.
Yeah. So Cameron handles the headlines on our show, and he has a plethora. He does about 10 every episode, and it's a journey. He comes through 100 just to
Was
narrow
gonna
it down to
say,
10, and they're
yeah.
fresh every single week. I do think that the logical leap is it would help people behave, and all it's done is shine a light on how crazy Florida is. The other two things are the heat has been theorized as part of the reason why we're crazy. And then there's like this overpopulation / drugs. And so I guess you could say you could point a light at California and go, cool, let's report on everything. I just choose to believe that it's just unique to Florida.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's go on believing.
I'm
We've
gonna
already
live that-
all
I'm gonna live my
created
life
this beautiful
that way.
fairy tale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Florida is just this
Florida
special
is like
land
the
with all the
party
crazies.
state.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Got it going on.
I got to be in bed by 9:30, so I don't really party anymore. But like whenever I was younger and I could really throw down, a lot of cock parties in the woods, reading some demon journals and stuff.
Yeah, I bet. Sure.
But I've a lot of my closest friends are from Seattle, LA, and the like, and they moved to Florida for some reason. And so like whenever we talk about it, like it takes them like a year or two before they go, it's real, huh? I'm
It's
like, "Yeah,
real."
it's real. Yeah. Like you're feeling it, aren't you?
Mhm.
So
you're feeling the vibe of Florida.
Yeah, it grows on you.
Well, thank you for taking us through this wonderful trip.
Thanks for having me.
What a Florida journey.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you for
been
having me.
fun. I make sure, listeners, please, if you haven't already, check out Florida Man on Florida Man. It's one of my all-time favorite pods.
So good.
They share strange stories I guarantee you've never, ever heard every single week. And Wayne, Josh, and Cameron, and who could forget Greg,
of course,
are truly the funniest hosts. You have to listen to their show. Wayne, you're the best. I love you to the moon and back.
I love you both so much. This has been an honor, and
thank you for being here.
My sad tank was a quarter of the way filled when I came on here, and now it's empty because
Yeah.
you both
Aw.
made me so happy. So thank you.
Yeah, we just adore you. I don't know how you managed to be like so witty and funny yourself, but find the partners on your podcast that you did. Like, how are
I
you all
know.
the funniest creatures on this
Thank you
planet?
for saying that. They're sweet boys, both of them.
They
And
are
I love
sweet
them. I
boys.
love them both
They
to
are.
death. Would die for all of them. So yeah, they're
Hmm.
amazing.
My favorite thing about Josh is that he was attacked by a bobcat.
That's real.
It's something I will never forget as long as I live, and it really is special.
It really,
we-
anytime I'm down, I just think about
think of
Josh
the
being
bobcat,
faced
yeah.
by a bobcat, and I'm
He-
immediately picked back up.
We did a live event not too long ago at a conference, and he told that story,
Oh.
and he said he said that he had a temporary tattoo on his bicep, and that he slung the bobcat so hard that after the fight, the tattoo was on his forearm. and I think about that all the time. Like it was like one of the best descriptions.
That is perfect.
We'll have to
That
have
is so
him
good.
on because I just
I was gonna
can't
say,
Honestly,
imagine what will come out of his mouth. Well, that's all the time we have this week for Keep It Weird. Again, thank you so much, Wayne, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, for listening. And as for us, we are kind of done for a while. We've got the holidays coming up. Lauren and I will be giving you a yearly wrap up as we usually do. And hopefully we will be able to record a Christmas special this year when Lauren visits, but we'll see what life has in store for us.
I know anything.
You
could
never
happen.
know.
Life is wild right now.
In the meantime, though, follow us on social media at Keep It Weirdcast so you can keep track of everything we are up to. Follow the Florida Men on social media. It's at FMOFM.
FMOFM. Right?
FMOFM. I was trying to do it from memory, but it was not happening.
it's at FMOFM podcast.
FMOFM podcast. Consider donating to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/keepitweirdpodcast so you can help us produce our show, and you'll get bonus episodes and a monthly newsletter in return. You can buy merch from our TeePublic store by going to www.keepitweirdpodcast.com/merch. And last but not least, if you have a moment, you can support us by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Wayne, what's our sign off this week?
I thought we could recite the entire Gaelic prayer from the 1737 service. If you guys are ready, we'll go ahead and start.
All right, sounds good.
Time does pass slowly, sometimes faster than you like. But take a moment to appreciate,
see and appreciate.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
And keep
it weird.
Wayne, I can't believe you came prepared with that Gaelic prayer.
That was off the cuff, babe. I can't believe you both ran with it.